either Arsenal or Leicester City that you could be watching just now. And we're thankful you came to join us. Thanks to Paul and AJ at C.Gars, Mitchell when he rocks up in a minute. And then a very special welcome tonight to a fantastic gentleman from Estelí, Nicaragua, Mr. Juan Martinez from Joya De Nicaragua. He's joined by some of his team tonight, Alicia and Mikhail, down at the factory. So we're in for a special evening tonight, a little bit of a treat. And two things I would say is, if you've got nothing else to do tomorrow night, have a look at the Stephen Fry in Central America series he did about four or 5 years ago. And part of his trip in Central America was through Nicaragua, and part of that was filmed in the Joya De Nicaragua factory. So you'll get to see the factory with Juan's father, Dr. Cuenca, and you'll understand some of the history that Juan won't have time tonight to get into. So it's worth a visit. If nothing else, it gives you an idea of what Central America is all about. The other thing is you all know Jonathan Drew from previous events and Drew Estate. He describes Joya De Nicaragua as the University of Cigars. So it's where he learned everything he knows about cigars. So I second that, because until I met this man, Mr. Martinez, I knew nothing. I still know very little more than nothing. But I've been fortunate enough to go to his factory a few times now, and it's just a wonderful experience. So tonight is not going to be as much of a question and answer kind of session. We're basically just going to sit back and let Juan take over. And it's a bit of going back to school and a bit of learning. And then at the end of the evening, we're going to get a chance collectively to blend our own C.Gars community cigar. And then in a few months' time, when it arrives and we rest it, you will all get one complimentary. Okay? But what I'd like you to do, please, is put yourself on mute. Put yourself into speaker view to get the benefit really of tonight. And as you go, type your questions into the chat room, and then we'll pick them up as we go along. One may well answer them as we go, just through the natural presentation conversation, or we'll stop and we'll ask them. So, Juan, there's the big build-up. It's all over to you, sir, if you're still in the room.
I am still in the room. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, you're great.
So good evening to everybody. First of all, I have to start by apologizing for the change of date. As Paul and Scott mentioned, we've had a couple of rough weeks in November down here in Nicaragua, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later, with some strong hurricanes visiting us out of season. And I also apologize in advance, because as a result of those storms, we've had a lot of connectivity issues over the past few days. So we're doing our best to make sure that this works. So if it doesn't, please bear with us. And because I'm in Managua, and my team is in Estelí, so we're going to be broadcasting to you from Estelí and from Managua. So if there's any glitch, we apologize in advance, but hopefully there will not be. Thank you, Scott, for that kind introduction. I want to thank, of course, the Tor Imports, our partners in the United Kingdom, for allowing us the opportunity to introduce ourselves to many of you. And we also want to especially thank the C.Gars team, Mr. Mitchell Orchant, I don't know if he's in the house, AJ and Paul for setting this up, and for also giving us this small window of opportunity to share a little bit about who we are, our history, our heritage, and above all, our love for tobacco and Nicaraguan cigars. So tonight we have a very special run-through. We have little time. We would love to do more, but we'll just leave you with a small taste so that next time you feel compelled to visit us when things are stabilized and normal, and we have the opportunity to do this in a whole week of visits to down here to Nicaragua to the cigar factory and all of that great adventure that we can host for you. Before I go in, I want to ask you if you have any questions, please feel free. Even though I do have some material prepared for you, because we want to make sure that this is an entertaining experience as much as it is a learning experience for you. I want to make sure that I do satisfy your needs and interests. So if you have any questions, please feel free. I'll try to be short and spend some time answering those questions. If I may, I will start sharing a presentation.
But before you do that one, would you like to introduce the two cigars so that people can get moving with?
Yes.
We've got the Antaño and the black.
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. Let's start with that part. So all of you got, I assume you have two cigars. You have, first of all, you have this masterpiece that's called Antaño CT. You can start whichever you feel comfortable with, and I'm going to talk about both of them because they are two distinct cigars, and they are a representation of what we are able to achieve down here in Nicaragua at Joya De Nicaragua. The first one is Antaño CT. Antaño in Spanish means yesteryear, and it's a blend that is inspired on the original cigars that were produced in Nicaragua back in the 1960s when we first started operating. And this particular sub-brand, it's called Antaño CT, uses a Connecticut shade wrapper. That's this beautiful claro yellowish wrapper that we have. And it uses binders and fillers from Nicaragua. This is a cigar that it's 3.5 out of 5 in terms of strength profile, if you want to have a scale. And you'll have some creaminess and a lot of spices to the smoke. It's not a mild smoke, even though the Connecticut shade would sell it that way. Generally, there's a relationship between milder cigars tend to have Connecticut shade wrapper. In this case, intentionally, we aspire to have a cigar that was fuller in body and fuller in strength. And this cigar, by the way, although it's relatively new, was named the #1 cigar of 2019 by Half Wheel, which is a very, very specialized media publication in our cigar world. So it's a great blend, and I think we're smoking a Robusto or a Toro, Scott. Which one? The Robusto, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I hope you enjoy. And the second one that we have with us, it's Joya Black. This is a completely different profile. And of course, it's as the name may interpret, it does have some interesting combinations of tobacco on it. In the Joya Black, we have a Mexican San Andres Negro, which that's where the black name comes from. It's a dark, thick, almost leathery type of wrapper, but it's very flavorful. It's a combination of sweet and white spices that makes it very interesting and very complex. And we have binders from Nicaragua and fillers from Nicaragua too. Sorry, I might correct. In this slide, there's something wrong. The binder is actually from Ecuador, not from Nicaragua. So we have a combination of tobaccos from Mexico, Ecuador, and Nicaragua. And we have a 3 out of 5 in terms of strengths. So it's a balanced, rich, and pleasant smoking experience. This is personally my personal, by the way, I'm sorry, the redundancy, it is my personal favorite blend. So this is a fantastic showcase of the flavors of Mexican tobacco too that we love very much. So you have those two cigars. You might light them up. If you have any questions as we move forward, please feel free to ask them. Are we good, Scott? By the way, what are we drinking? I'm not drinking the same as you guys, but I'm curious.
Paul, would you like to introduce, is it Stella Do or how do you put it?
So most of the people on the call have joined and are aware of our own independent bottled whiskey, which is under a brand called Stella Do. So we've included in the sampler pack our Space Side Stella Do 5CL miniatures, which is not an overly powering. There's no peat in it. A little bit of sweetness with finished off in a sherry cask. So we match these with the cigars based on their strengths. So please enjoy this Stella Do. Also, Anthony has put into the comments some hashtags. There's a promotion that will run. So take any photos of the session with your cigars and the little bottle of Stella Do, post them to social media, use the tags that Anthony's put into the comments, and we'll choose the best social media posts, and we'll give away a bottle of Stella Do Say Also, which is a single cask whiskey that we've produced. It was bottled last year, limited to about 700 bottles. So enjoy. Thanks, Juan.
Thank you, Paul. Much appreciated. Looking forward to eventually trying that pairing. The session is going to go this way. We have 4 main parts. I'm trying to go a little bit quick over them. We're going to start talking about Nicaragua because I understand that a lot of you, or many of you at least, do not know much about Nicaragua, and we understand that. So I want to go over a little bit about our country, where we come from. Then we're going to talk about our company. We're going to talk also about the production process, the main stages of cigar making. And then we're going to end up with the most exciting part, which is, as Scott said, blending the cigar blend, which is your own community blend. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. So if I may, let me start with introducing to you Nicaragua, which is this very small country in the middle of the American continent. We're actually, if you split the continent in 2, you're going to split Nicaragua in 2. We're actually in the middle of the continent. And we are surrounded by both oceans, the Pacific and the Atlantic, or the Caribbean. And to the north, we border with Honduras and Costa Rica. And to the south, we border with to the north, El Salvador and Honduras. And to the south, we border with Costa Rica. We are a tropical country, which means that we are above the equator, but between the 2 tropics. So that means that our country, as we will see later on, has a great deal of adventures in its core. Nicaragua means land of lakes and volcanoes. We have 19 volcanoes, 7 of which are still active. That means that the core of our earth and our soil is very rich. It comes from the center of our planet. And we also have a lot of fresh water. We have 2 great lakes that we call them, Lake Managua and Lake Nicaragua. And then we have a lot of rivers, lagoons, and other small lakes. And that makes Nicaragua a very, very special place. It's still quite unexplored, although it's in its way to achieve a great level of development. It's been considered one of the most largest tourist places to visit, unexplored, discovered places. So it's a fantastic place. And for those of you who have had the opportunity to visit us, you might just confirm that. In Nicaragua, we have this small city that we call Estelí. It's actually not, it's one of the largest cities in the country, but for your standards, it's probably small. We have around 200,000 inhabitants. And this is what we call the cigar capital of the world. And this is, for those you technology geeks, this would be like the Silicon Valley, but for cigars, except with not as much glamour and not as much money as you would have in Silicon Valley. But what that means is that in Estelí, we have a cluster of cigar making and tobacco producing. And here you have more than 150 companies that are dedicated to the manufacturing or any activity relating to cigars. 150 companies in this small city means that you will find a cigar company or a box maker or a label maker at every single block in town. Almost every single block except the church block that obviously they're at least not now. For now, they're not making cigars. But it's a town that lives, that breathes, and that functions thanks to tobacco. We have, and from this city, we have become the #1 exporter of premium cigars, primarily to the United States. And because the United States is the largest cigar market in the world, hence we are also the largest premium handmade cigar exporter in the world. We have 16 tobacco producers that grow leaf exclusively. We have more than 60 cigar manufacturing companies or factories. And we have a lot of complementary activities like box making, labels, and printers in town. So it's quite a dynamic industry that we have in Estelí. And that basically translates into cigars that are considered the best cigars in the world, if not amongst the best. 6 out of 10 cigars that are considered the best cigars over the past 3 years are made in Nicaragua. 6 out of 10. That is said by publications like Cigar Journal, Cigar Aficionado, Cigar Snob, Half Wheel, and so on. That's a great number. That means that 6 out of 10 cigars that are smoked around the world and are considered the best are coming from Nicaragua. So we're very proud of that achievement. However, we still do have a lot of concentration of our production that goes to the United States. 80% of our production is smoked in the United States. Again, the largest cigar market in the world. And finally, one of the most important things is that we employ as an industry more than 40,000 direct permanent employees. So 40,000 heads of families whose livelihoods, whose well-being depend on our industry. So as you can imagine, it's a very dynamic, it's very powerful also in northern Nicaragua. And this is an introduction of where we are. Of course, for some of you, for some people around the world, this sudden rise of Nicaragua as in the cigar world is rather new. However, this is unfair to history because we've been rolling cigars since the 1960s. Actually, in the first cigar operation that was established in Nicaragua, in Esteli, was Joya De Nicaragua. Back then, in 1968, was actually known as Nicaragua Cigar Company, and that it rolled the Joya De Nicaragua brand. But it was the first operations, and since then, we've been in business and without interruptions, rolling cigars for the world market. As I said, nowadays, we have fantastic cigar brands and cigar companies based in Esteli, from Drew Estate, that Scott already mentioned, to Oliva, to Padron, to Plasencia, AJ Fernandez, and a whole lot of other fantastic and world-class cigar manufacturers are based in Esteli. This is an aerial photography of our factory and a look at the Valley of Esteli. The city is actually a valley, so it's surrounded by mountains. It's located roughly 800 meters above sea level. So you will find many factories, and our particular operation is based in the center of town. So this is how you look from the bird's eye view of our facility in Esteli. Our factory, as I said before, was established in 1968. We have been operating without interruption. It was called Nicaragua Cigar Company, and we are making premium handmade cigars exclusively. And that's a very important distinction that we have to make for many people that that are coming into the cigar industry or enjoying cigars for the first time. There doesn't seem to be a large distinction between a machine-made cigar and a handmade cigar, but there are fundamental differences, of course, for those of you who know. In our case, we specialize in working with long filler, natural, no additives, no chemicals, no flavorings, tobacco. And we call ourselves premium because about 90% of our production is long filler. We do have a smaller production of mixed fillers, or they call it short filler, mixed filler, or Cuban sandwich, or however you want to call them. But it's a use of tobaccos that we have. Our factory has been blessed of being recognized as the factory of the year, but in 2 years in a row, in 2018 and 2019. We employ roughly around 380 people. This is a look at our main production gallery. And this, of course, today, if you go to our factory, it doesn't look like that because due to COVID, we have new measures. We have basically 2 people per table. We have about 60 couples that are rolling cigars, and the rest are personnel that support this process. What's interesting about our production is that unlike Cuba, where one person is responsible primarily for the whole cigar, we work in a system that we call couples or pairs. So, for example, the gentleman to the right, the gentleman to the right is the bonchero, and the lady to the left is the rolera, for example. Let me show you a little bit more of this. Is the rolera, and between the two of them, we make one cigar. So between the pair, the couple will be rolling somewhere between 350 and 400 cigars per day, depending on the variety, the size, and ultimately the quality and the relevance of the cigar. So this is where most of our production is happening currently. It's a two-story building. So this is the upper story of the building where we are rolling our cigars. In the bottom, we have tobacco warehousing and packaging. Here are some of the faces. For us, it's important that cigar smokers, cigar lovers around the world know and recognizes the faces who are responsible for making their cigars. Remember, these products are 100% handmade, handcrafted. That means that from the moment that the seed is planted in the fields to the moment the cigar reaches your hand, you will have more than 300 pairs of people that are involved in making that single cigar. It's a purely human activity. It's a purely human trade, from the people who make them to the people who enjoy them. So for us, it's very important that you get to meet people like Aristo, who is our master bonchero or our leading bonchero, Panchita to the right, who is our head of quality control, and she's one of the founders of Joya De Nicaragua. She's been with us for 52 years. And then we have Vladimir, who is the head of cigar. He's the one who takes care of all of our aging rooms. And then Maria Elena, who is the head of packaging, and she's been also with us for more than 50 years. And between all of them, we encompass 4 important principles for Joya De Nicaragua, which is unrivaled quality, pride in tradition. We try to be as traditional and respecting our culture, our history, and our heritage as much as we possibly can. However, we continue to evolve constantly. We continue to adapt and respond to the changes and to the wants and needs of the cigar smokers around the world. And as I said at the beginning, we are very human conscious. We understand that our trade and our activity has an impact not only on the people who make the cigars, but also on the people who enjoy them. And we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. And as that, Joya Nicaragua is one of the best known brands internationally coming from Nicaragua. Right now, we're distributed in more than 60 countries around the world. There in the PowerPoint, it says 50, but it's actually more than 60 cigars by today. So you can smoke a Joya Nicaragua in any continent, from Latin America, North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and of course, Oceania. And just to wrap it up in this part, I have to do a little bit of commercial, of course. This is the summary of our portfolio for those of you who are smoking Joya De Nicaragua for the first time. We have quite an ample range of products, and these are our family of products. From left to right, we have Rosalones, the Joya family, which is our most contemporary line they use tobaccos from different origins, multiple origins, and these have a great price point. We have Joya Black is part of this family. We have Clásico, which is the original Nicaraguan cigar, the one that has been produced since 1968. It's our best-selling cigar around the world. It's a mild cigar using a Connecticut shade wrapper. Then we have the Antaño family, which is a robust Nicaraguan puros, except the Cete that uses an Ecuadorian wrapper. But this family basically showcased the quality and the characteristics of Nicaraguan tobacco, which is primarily robustness, flavor, and strength. And finally, to your right, we have the Obras Maestras, or masterpieces, which are our commemorative cigars. They are like the jewel of our crown, if you may. And we have Cuatro Cinco, which celebrates our 45th anniversary. It's a cigar that uses tobacco that has been aged in vintage oak barrels. Fantastic blend. We have Cinco Décadas that celebrates our 50th anniversary, a brand that was introduced in 2018 and that uses tobaccos that have been aged for more than 10 years. And then Numero Uno, which is quite a unique and special blend that has been named the best cigar of the year in 2018 also. So you have basically a cigar for every taste profile, for every interest, and for every price point. And this is the commercial part, so don't worry, I won't keep bombarding you with any more commercial information about Joya De Nicaragua. From now on, we go into the practical part, or the experiential part of cigar making. But I want to answer first the key question that keeps popping up in cigar smokers from outside of the United States. Remember, the United States has been used to smoking cigars from Nicaragua for quite a while. So they understand and they know where we come from. But for many smokers around the world, they still don't understand why is it that magazines and distributors and some smokers and social media say that Nicaraguan cigars and tobacco are king. And let me explain it to you in a very simple way. There are many factors, but for me, there are two primary factors that determine why Nicaraguan cigar and tobacco are king. The first one has to do with the quality of the leaf itself. And the quality of the leaf is a direct function from the characteristics of the soil. If you remember, I mentioned that Nicaragua, being a land of lakes and volcanoes, has 19 volcanoes. That means that our land, our soil, is rich in nutrients and minerals. You can grow tobacco, but you can also grow anything from the soil, and we will grow big, rich, lush, flavorful. So the soil, I would say, is the main reason why the tobacco grown in Nicaragua, it's so unique, so special, so flavorful, so complex, and so robust. But to add, you have to add also that we are a tropical country. We have diverse geographical regions where we grow tobacco. And as you will see later on, we have Esteli, we have Jalapa, we have Condega, and that we get a lot of rain and we get a lot of sunlight as a tropical country. So those three elements that are nature driven are responsible for the quality of tobacco. But we also have to have the human hand, and this pays respect to the quality of our tobacco growers in Nicaragua, who have invested decades and decades of experimentation, development, and improving their cultural techniques for getting the best yields and the best quality of tobacco that you can get. Tobacco growing in Nicaragua is no joke. If you know the Plasencia families, if you know the Oliva, if you know AJ, if you know any of these tobacco growers, also cigar makers, you will understand that tobacco growing in Nicaragua, it's a serious trade. But you can have the best tobacco in the world and you can use it yourself and you will screw it up probably. I will screw it up. I will, destroy it, and it won't be worth it. So the second factor that for me plays a role in making Nicaraguan cigars king has to do with the people and the city of Esteli. And this has to do with the experience and that we have developed. If you're putting attention, I already mentioned that we have more than 60 cigar factories based in Esteli, in a town of 200,000 people. That means that each one of our companies, Joya De Nicaragua, Drew Estate, Plasencia, Perdomo, Oliva, Padron, AJ, and so on and so forth, we are day in and day out competing not only for the best tobacco grown or the best soil to grow tobacco in, the best leaf, we are also competing for the best labor, the most talented cigar makers in the city, in town, in a very small and limited town. And we are also ultimately competing for your palate and your taste preferences and your interests. So when you think about that, competition makes us every day try to be better, aspire to be better. And that's one of the driving forces, even though we get along very, very well as a community, as a tobacco and cigar community in Esteli, we do recognize that in order to be better, we have to be better than the rest, because there's so much offerings that competition drives us. And I would say that perhaps is one of the most relevant things, because as I said, you can have the best tobacco in the world, work by the wrong people, and you destroy it. And in this case, I'm proud to say that the collective of cigar makers in Nicaragua is perhaps the best in the world. So it's not that cigars coming from Nicaragua are the best. It's that the cigar makers that produce those cigars are the best cigar makers. So I'm very proud to be part of that family of producers down here in Nicaragua. And we can talk more about that if you want later on. So now I'm going to talk about the process. There are four main stages in the cigar making process. The first one is the agricultural part, meaning growing the leaf and harvesting in the fields. The second one is the pre-industrial part. The third one is the manufacturing. And the fourth one is the commercial. And we're going to go quickly on each one right now. So tobacco is grown as a natural leaf, of course. We plant the seeds in the fields. In Nicaragua, growing season generally goes from no, October. This year is going to start later due to the hurricanes, November, and it runs up to April, May of each year. And this is the moment where we plant the seeds, the plants grow, and we harvest the leaves. Remember, when we grow tobacco, we are using the whole leaf. So we're using almost every leaf that is usable from the plant. When we cut the whole, when we harvest the whole plant, what you're left with is an empty stick or the main stem. And this is how a grown field of tobacco would look like. This one in particular, even though it's not today, it's an old picture, has only a few weeks left before it starts maturing, and hence we would start harvesting eventually. And we harvest it by hand because what we care for is the quality and the structure and the integrity of the leaf. So we don't have a machine, at least not in Nicaragua, that is harvesting the leaf. We're cutting them one by hand. So it's quite labor intensive if you think about it, because we want to make sure that those leaves are not broken, that are not ripped, and that they are as integral as possible. Once the leaves have been harvested, we go to what we call the curing process. This is still in the fields. We have these big houses that we call curing barns, or casas de curados in Spanish. And here we will hang the leaves one by one, and they will spend some time curing if you want. But actually the curing, as you would cure ham, for example, or cheese, what we're doing is removing the humidity and the moisture content of the leaf, and it turns from green that you saw to yellowish to brown. Once the leaf is brown, we will hang them down and we will move to the second stage. So this is more or less. Also during this stage, we'll have a classification. We will sort them by size, by shape, by different textures and different forms before we actually move in the next stage, which is the second stage that I mentioned. It's called the pre-industry, or the fermentation part of the process. And this is a process in which we will you will have the leaves, the brown leaves of tobacco, and cured, and we will build these big beds of tobacco that we call pilones. And these are big structures of leaves that will weigh somewhere between 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of only tobacco leaf. And we will put them one on top of the other, and we will add moisture, water. And the combination of moisture with the weight and the natural degradation process of the leaf, because remember, this is organic matter that we destroyed from the leaf, we cut it from the plant, and now it's dying, decaying. This process goes through what we call the fermentation. It heats up, it generates heat in the core, and in that heat, we lose a lot of the natural chemicals of the tobacco leaf, the ammonias, the excess nicotines, the oils, and we start the transformation of the sugars. And this is a completely natural process. We don't add anything other than moisture. And this is fantastic. We will be rotating the leaves once they reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the core of the pilones. And we will do that for a long time, around 1 year or more, depending on the variety of the leaf that we are working. And this stage is key. It's key for a few reasons. One of them is because if you messed up, you destroy your whole lot of tobacco. And the second one is what makes difference, the main difference for tobacco for cigar making is this stage compared to tobacco for other consumptions like cigarettes and so on and so forth. So before this stage, the leaf is actually not smokable. You can actually smoke it, but it will give you a punch. It will be uncomfortable. It will be harsh. It will be over nicotine. However, this is the stage that would give you the smokiness of the leaf. Now, once these leaves are ready and they have reached their level, we go to the storing of the tobacco. We actually age the tobacco after the fermentation. We pack them in bales, we dry them so that the fermentation process does not continue, and we age them. And this aging process of the leaf could last somewhere between 1 year, 2 years, up to 10 years or 20 years, depending on the cigar maker. So right now, this is the end of the second stage of the process. Now that we have the leaves and that they've been aged, they've been properly fermented and then aged, we go to the manufacturing process. And in this stage, I want to invite a very special guest. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to ask Michael and Carlos, who are at the factory, and they will basically introduce us to the cigar making process. So this is Michael. Hola, Michael.
Hola. Hello.
So Michael is one of our most important cigar makers at Joya De Nicaragua. He's been making cigars for 16 years. He has quite a lot of experience. He's actually one of our head of quality control in the factory. So we have a great opportunity to have him showing us how cigars are made. And we have the perk that he speaks English and he will do our presentation in English. So this is the third stage of cigar making, which is basically the cigar rolling process. So Michael, welcome, bienvenido, and it's all yours.
Okay, guys, everybody. We have a different tobacco. To make a cigar, we have following instrument: table, scissor, casquillo, chaveta, and mold.
So this is sorry, Michael, these are the main tools that he will be using to make the cigars. And these are the tools that every tabaquero will be using to make his cigar.
Okay. To make a cigar, we take a binder, put the binder in the table, always in the 45 angle. We take the second in this position, the bison in the middle, then we add the ligero, always in the middle. Cut both parts here. Depending the stress of cigar, we add more ligero or more bison. In this occasion, I am making a Antonio CT. Okay, put the filler in the binder. Here, roll here, okay. Okay, cut with the chaveta in this part. This process is called here in the factory cinceleado to help the mold to make the head. Put the bunch in the mold in this position. Second, bison in ligero. We have a difference between bison and ligero. The bison, the texture is more clear, or the ligero is more strong.
It's thicker, so he's showing the difference. So the ligero is thicker, and the viso and the secos are less.
Okay. Put
He's using vegetable gum. That's what we use to stick the leaf.
when we finish the mold, put the mold in this press by 20 minutes. Okay. Pressure the press by 20 minutes. Okay. When the cigar is ready to put the wrapper, we have a cigar finished with the 20 minutes of the press. Then we add the wrapper. Cut both parts. Put this cigar, the bunch, it is in the wrapper. Put the gum here. Roll.
He's finishing up at the head, adding a little bit of the glue, the gum to the head.
Okay. Cook this part with the scissor. We need make the cap. Then we have a machine to coat the cigar depending the size. We have a ready cigar, 2 smokes.
So I will leave Michael there rolling some more cigars as I speak. Gracias, Michael. That was fantastic for Fantástico. Gracias, Carlos, to the cameraman over there. And I will continue talking. One of the things that you need to know is that even though he did this slowly, the actual ability of the Bonchero and Rolera is to be able to do 350 bunches and 350 or 400 cigars per day. So it's actually quite a speedier process, if you want, when we talk about the actual process itself. We also have the tobaccos that he's showing, and we're going to talk more about the tobaccos in a little bit, because that's very important for us when we go to okay, good. Can you guys see me, or are you still seeing Rudy? Michael? Carlos, I need you to turn on the camera. Encender la cámara, Carlos. Okay, because I need you to remove. Yeah, there we go. So now, okay, So can you guys, Scott, who are you seeing? Are you seeing me or are you seeing still?
I see you at the moment, Juan.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so that's a short version of cigar making. Let me continue before we actually go to some questions and the fun part. Let me continue sharing my screen, going back a little bit to, there's a very important stage that we get a lot of questions, and I'm gonna get ahead of myself because I know that there's a lot of curiosity about the draw. Remember, as Michael showed us, cigar making is 100% handmade process. So the texture of the cigar itself and the strength that you have, the pressure that the bonchero and the rolera exercise on the tobacco will determine ultimately the draw or the ease with which the air flows through the cigar. You know, the leaves have been ordered in such a way that the draw or air can flow through the cigar to your mouth. The smoke can flow to your mouth. However, you know, it's sometimes your own hands are not able to exercise the optimal amount of pressure. So there is a machine, and this is the only machine involved in the cigar making process that, in fact, is not involved in the cigar making itself. It's a quality control, and it's called the Draw Master. And 100% of our bunches, before they are applied the wrapper, goes through the testing of the draw. So this machine basically simulates the sucking of air in the cigar and will basically measure how strong or soft the draw is. So we have a gauge up here that will show us if the pressure is between 20 and 40, it's allowed. If it's below 20, it's too hard. If it's above, it's too soft. And if it's above 40, then it's too hard, and we discard the cigar. So 100% of our production will go through this machine before having the wrapper applied. So this is one of the ways that we try to guarantee as much as we can that the draw in every cigar is as ideal as possible. There are distinct preferences amongst consumers. Some people like the draw tighter, some of them like them softer. So you'll have some variances, but in general, this will help us guarantee that the cigars are not plugged. Once the cigars are ready and they have gone through a quality control process, once the cigars are rolled, the wrapper has been applied, we will go through an inspection process of each one of the cigars, making sure that the length is correct, that the gauge is correct, and that the weight of the tobacco in the cigar is correct. We will go through the aging of the cigar. This is Vladimir. He's the head of our aging rooms. And under his charge, he has 7 rooms, each of which holds around 200,000 cigars. So roughly between 1.4 to 1.5 million cigars are under his custody. And in this room, what happens is like it would happen in your personal humidors. Cigars come here to age. But in the case of the factory, the aging includes 2 components. The first one is the stabilization of the moisture. In order to roll the cigars, the tobacco has to be moist in order to be workable. So we have to add moisture. We have to humidify the tobacco. That means that once the cigar is ready, we need to extract also that humidity. So in these rooms, we have controlled humidity of 70%. The humidity is actually below 70%. It's actually somewhere between 60 and 63%, and controlled temperature. The cigars will be stored in these units that we call media ruedas, which is basically a natural hexagon shape that happens when you bundle together 50 round shapes. So 50 cigars will make a media rueda in these hexagon shapes, and that will be our counting and stock keeping unit. Each one of these bundles or media ruedas will have the information of who rolled, who bunched, on what date, for what product, and who supervised, and the weight of the cigars. That is for quality control and traceability of each of those cigars. So we know who made each cigar that we're going to be packing and that it was approved by quality control. The second thing that happens in this room after the control of moisture in the cigar is the marrying of the tobaccos. As you know, cigars are made with components or ingredients, tobaccos from different regions, different priming, different varietals, and they have to combine together as a slow cooking stew would. And here is where we get the actual marrying of the tobaccos together. Cigars will age in our factory on average about 6 months, no less than 90 days. But on average, we will have 6 months for every cigar. We will have cigars that have been aging for more than 1 year before they are actually packed. And once they have reached their ideal age period, we will go to packing. But before packing, we will actually inspect once again each one of those cigars. So this gentleman over here is inspecting that each cigar is its texture, its construction, its size, and everything, because cigars will be affected by changes in the weather, changes in humidity, and transit. Of course, they may get damaged. So this guy over here is inspecting, and he'll inspect 100%. We have a couple of people that are inspecting 100% of the cigars before they go to the packing, which basically means we will add the labels, the stickers, and we will put everything of the, the dressing up of the cigar, if you would. They go from being naked to being all dressed up with their bands and their boxes. We might produce cigars that are packed in boxes of 20, of 10s, of 25s, of 30s. We might have bundles, which are packed 10, 5, 20 cigars. We might have petaca or packs that have different amount of cigars, and you already know how they come. And of course, this is a longer process than what I've shown you, but it basically summarizes the steps of making the cigar. So this is the third stage. The fourth stage, which is not showcased here, would be the commercial part, in which the cigars will be shipped, in this case, to Scott at Tor Imports. He will hold them in stock for a few months, and then he will ship them to Cigars, and they will ship them or sell them to you. And that would be the fourth stage in the commercial part. Once we ship the cigars, we have lost control of them, and unfortunately, they arrive under mercy of many factors outside of our control. A few things I want to showcase, though, in the process. Every cigar that ships from our factory is frozen, deep frozen, for 4 days. So that means that before we ship the packs to Scott, they will reach minus 20 degrees Celsius for 3 days, and will slowly rise up the temperature. This is done to control for the risk of any bugs that may be in the tobacco, because the leaf itself, natural leaves, attract beetles that may damage the production. Some countries might freeze them in entry also, but it depends on every country. So this is the end of the cigar making process. Now, before we go maybe to some questions and we actually move to the last part of our presentation, which is our blending, I want to just showcase one important thing for all of you, which is basically time. I've been trying to mention how long it takes to make a cigar. I already mentioned the amount of people that are involved in making every single cigar, more than 300 pairs of hands. But now just imagine, picture in your head the amount of time it takes for every cigar to come into being. From the moment that the seeds are planted in the fields to the amount of time that the tobacco is fermented. You can have a fermentation process that would last somewhere between a year or 2 years. Then we age the tobacco for a minimum of 2 years. We have 4 years now. Then we make the cigars with that tobacco. And the making is not long, but we will age the cigars for an average of 6 months. And once those cigars are ready, they will be shipped to Scott, our distributor in the UK, and he'll probably hold a stock of somewhere between 4 to 6 months. So we are now up to 5 years. So from the moment the seed is planted, an average cigar will be in the making for about 5 years. That means that the tobaccos that are in the cigars that you are smoking today, in the Antaño CT and in the Joya Black, those are tobaccos that were cultivated and that were harvested at least somewhere between 2013 and 2014, 2015, the tops. So cigar making is a lot about patience. It's a lot about craftsmanship, but it is also a lot about time. Aging tobaccos, aging cigars, and of course, when you add up the time that you actually age the cigars in your own humidor, then no, you continue adding up time. So that's one of the key parts. And some companies have very keenly used the concept of time, of not rushing the process as part of their marketing campaigns. So I just wanted to highlight that, so that the next time you light up a cigar, wherever it comes from, what country that cigar is made, and you light it up, you just remember the amount of work that went behind making that single product. And the irony of it is that you will burn it down into ash for your own enjoyment. So Scott, before we move on to the blending, do we have any questions that we might want to answer before we go into this part?
No, I'm following the questions, and it's more comments, more complimentary comments, to be honest with you, Juan. As we say in Scotland, your tongue hasn't halted, so you've done very well. And I think, I mean, if people have got questions to ask as you go along, please put them into the chat room. It's just fascinating watching you, sir. This is why you're the University of Cigars, my friend.
Thank you,
Take us to the blending. Take us to the blending. Come on.
Great.
That's what everybody's... Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, my friend. So, and that what we went through up to now was about the cigar making. But there's another magical part that's actually about the blending, the development of the cigar. And that's one of the things that we enjoy the most. Developing a product that would appeal to cigar smokers in particular places around the globe, that they will appreciate it, that they will enjoy, and that they will feel comfortable investing their hard-earned money in smoking that cigar. As I showed you before, we have a wide range of brands. We also make cigars for other people. We make cigars for, we make a very distinguished brand in the UK. It's called Charatan. But we also make other brands like Dunbarton Tobacco, Sobremesa for Steve Saka, Fratello, and a bunch of other private labels that we manufacture. But the magic about blending is that it brings a lot of creativity. So we're going to go through this process, and I'm trying to explain as much as I can. Are you watching my screen, Scott? Give me a thumbs up. Yes. Okay.
I can see the cigar box, the Classico.
Okay. Yes. So are we ready to blend?
Before you go on, Juan, someone asked a question about how long does it take to train a blender? Well, I was going to suggest we'll find out in about 3 months' time. Yeah.
Yes. Well, a blender or a cigar maker. For example, someone like Michael, he's both the blender, he's part of our blending team, but he's also the head of quality control, but he started as a bonchero. To train a tabaquero or someone who makes a cigar could be somewhere between 3 months up to 6 months, depending on his ability and his learning capability. So it takes a little bit of time to make sure that they learn the skill sets properly.
Okay. So there was another question there, Juan, just before you go on about the throw. I'm trying to find the chat room again. About how often do you have to get rid of a leaf because it's not up to scratch? I'm going to say not very often, because you so look after your fields.
Exactly. Well, once the leaves have been processed, sometimes the leaves might be damaged, might be ripped, or sometimes it might be stained. Because water droplet, or because it has a fungus. For example, we have blue mold that can affect tobacco, can damage the aesthetic of the leaf. So sometimes we might lose there, but we might have some damage at the factory level. At the factory level, we don't waste any tobacco. Even though it's not up to par, we'll end up using it in some form or another, because we know that the quality of the leaf is there. But there's something, because it's broken, or it's not, it has a stain or something like that, we will perhaps chop it up and make it a mix filler or something like that. It continues to be a premium tobacco, a grade A tobacco, as we call it. So we won't lose any of that tobacco. So as Michael showed us firsthand, this is a hand-driven process. But there are many things that you need to understand about tobacco leaf, and I'll try to summarize in as much as I can, probably a week worth of seminars regarding tobacco in a few minutes. So I apologize if I miss something that is relevant. So this is a wrapper leaf, and this is the leaf that would go on the outside of the cigar, the leaf that you would touch, that you would hold in your hand. Not all of the leaves are the same. This, for example, the ones that you see in front of you, these are filler leaves and binder leaves. As you see, they are a little bit more wrinkled. We don't care much about how they look because they will go inside of the cigar. And we will have leaves that come from different places that have different profiles. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So the first thing that we need to understand is that each leaf has a function. So if you imagine a tobacco plant that grows from the bottom up, and we have different varieties of tobacco that can grow from Havana seed, Corojo seed, Connecticut, broadleaf, San Andres, a bunch of other leaves that also can be used for cigars. Black tobacco that we call them, even though not all of them are black, we call them black tobaccos for cigar. And if you see that leaf in that image, you will count somewhere between 16 to 22 leaves that grow in each plant. So when we harvest the leaves from the plant, we will do them in time. So the first group, we call them tercios or thirds. So we have we divide the plant in 3 thirds. The bottom third or the bottom group of leaves, we call them the groups of secos. The medium group, we call them the group of visos, the second third. And the third third, the group of ligeros, are the upper group of leaves here in the upper part. Each one of these groups of leaves has a different function or a different attribute in the cigar. The seco, for example, had less exposure to the sun because it's on the bottom of the plant. So it would grow thinner, less big and thinner. So it will help more if we use it for the combustion of the cigar. And that's why we have this little flame over here. Then the second one, however, the second group, and by the way, this is the first group of leaves that we harvest. So we first initially harvest this group, and then we are left with the 2 remaining thirds. The second group is called the visos, which are located in the middle of the plant, and will add a lot of the flavor and a lot of the strength also to the cigar. That's why we have this. And the last group of leaves, which will be the ones that will remain on the plant the longest, once we have harvested the second and the third leaves, in time, in actually a week of difference between each one, these leaves will be the ones that have absorbed not only more sunlight, more energy from the sun, but also more energy and nutrients and food from the soil. Remember, the plant will feed its leaves from the soil also. It will be fed through the leaves, sunlight, but it will also feed from the soil. So once we have removed the 2 thirds, the last group of leaves will be the last group standing and will be absorbing a lot of that nutrients, and the leaves will grow thicker. And that's why Michael was referring that if we want a stronger cigar, we add more ligero, because that's the leaf that adds the strength to the cigar. This is a generic plant. We may have varietals, as I said, from Havanas, and we can have the same varietal grown in different regions, as we will see next. And this is the characteristic that we were showing. If you see on the left, we have the secos, which tend to be lighter, thinner, and to the extreme, we have the ligeros. This is the same tobacco leaf, but from different primings, meaning the first group of thirds, the second third, and the third third. Again, strength, flavor, and aromas and combustion. Each one has a function. And this is another perspective of the same leaf. As you can see, these are from Jalapa, the left, secos, the visos, and the ligeros. Then we go to the group of wrappers and binders. So these 3 leaves, the secos and visos and ligeros, are wrapped around or are wrapped in the binder or capote, as we say in Spanish. And then we have the last leaf, which is the wrapper. We can have different varieties grown in different regions that will give us different textures, colors, and strength. And this is just for example. You don't need to memorize all of this. It's just for an illustration purpose. We can have an Habano Criollo grown in Nicaragua wrapper that we use it as a wrapper that is grown in Jalapa, and its textures will be thick, its colors will be colorado and dark, and that it will provide you a high level of strength in the cigar. On the other extreme, we might have a Connecticut Shade Ecuador, which is the wrapper that we have on the Antaño CT. This is used as a wrapper primarily. We don't use it as a binder. It's grown in Ecuador, and the texture, unlike the one that it's thick, this one is light, delicate, and silky. The color is yellow, is light, and the strength level will be mild. And for every type of wrapper that we grow from every region in the world, we have characterizations of texture, of color, and of strength. And lastly, we want to talk about origins. In the case of Nicaragua, we have 3 main growing regions for tobacco. All of them are located in northern Nicaragua. So this is the map of Nicaragua, which is a weird triangle with 4 sides. We have Honduras, El Salvador, Costa Rica. We have the Pacific and the Atlantic. When you go to Nicaragua, you land here in Managua, the capital, and you drive 150 kilometers north to Estelí, where we have around 4,300 acres of tobacco land. Up north, we have Condega, and then we have Jalapa, which are the 3 main growing regions of tobacco. We might plant the same variety of seed in the 3 regions, and we will have a different smoking profile for each seed. For example, tobacco growing in Estelí tends to be sweeter, earthier, more spicy, because of the characteristics of the soil in Estelí. We tend to use tobacco from Estelí for fuller or stronger blends. Tobacco from Jalapa, on the other extreme, for example, because the soil is more sandy, unlike the Estelí, which is a little bit more muddy. The tobaccos from Jalapa are softer flavors, sweet notes too, but more aromatic than fuller in body and strength than the Estelí. And then we also have the Valley of Condega, where we also grow tobacco in a magical place that we call Ometepe, which is in Lake Nicaragua, which is an island with 2 volcanoes where a small amount of tobacco is grown. So this is important for you to understand that the profile that you get from Nicaraguan tobacco, from Nicaraguan cigars, varies depending on the origins and the varietals that we are using. And as you've seen already, it's not an easy thing to manage. Okay, so now we are going to go to our blending session, and I apologize because I'm going to ask you to type in your browser the following address: www.ismokenica.com. But don't start filling in. What we want to do is to allow the group at this session to have your own group blend. So for the fact of being part of this master class, you guys have earned your own collective blend. And this is a blend that we will make exclusively for the group of people who have participated in this session. Of course, ideally, we would like each participant to have its own blend. However, due to logisticals and time constraints, we're unable to do that. Hopefully in the future, when C.Gars organizes a trip to Nicaragua and all of you come down here, we'll have the opportunity to blend your own personal blend together with us. So, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And the link's been put into the comments for people to link into.
Okay, and right now you are seeing, once you type in ismokenica.com, you will get to this page. And I know that it might be simple because it's a simplified process. If you go to a traditional blending session with us at Joya De Nicaragua, you would basically go through the whole process and you would blend your own cigar. You would choose your binders, your wrappers, and your fillers by origin, etc., etc. But in this case, we're gonna make it simple for you guys. So the first thing that we need is your information, because every cigar will have your information. You will have the name, will be personalized to you. And we need also your email address and your country, because that will be used to verify that you are a legitimate part of this group. So once you've logged into that and put the information,
Good evening. How are we doing?
Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. 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 Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I want you to choose your ideal blend of cigars. So we're giving you a few options. As I said, we were not able to do it as deep as we would like, but at least you will have an idea of what your own personal collective blend. So first, you will respond, how strong do you like your cigars? If they're mild, medium, strong, super strong. Should we put mute? There, up there. Who's unmuted? Paul, could you help me there with unmuting?
Yeah, I'm just going through them to find.
Then you will choose your preferred wrapper. If you want a light Colorado or an Oscuro wrapper, in an example like Connecticut shade, like a Nicaraguan Criollo or like a Mexican. Then we would like you to define your flavor profile. If you want this to be light, flavorful and balanced, or intense and robust. You choose your size, and then you put any comments. And the blend that gets the majority of the votes will be, you will get a pack of cigars. Scott will correct me how many cigars each one of you will get as part of this exercise. We will blend these cigars exclusively for this group. So everybody will get one cigar coming directly tomorrow. Our team at the factory will be blending and making these cigars for you, and they will ship to the UK. So you will eventually receive your own collective blend from this session as a form of gratitude from C.Gars, from Tor, and from Joya De Nicaragua for being part of this event. So you will not receive each one your own personal blend, but you will receive a blend with the date and, of course, the one that was chosen by the majority. So what everybody chooses, the majority chooses, will be the blend that this group will be having. And this will be our sort of tasting for you guys, so that the next time we actually can make a 100% dedicated personal blending session. And Scott will negotiate there with Mitchell if he was willing to do something in that line in the future that would allow us to get your own personal blend to each one of you. With that said, I think I went a little bit over time. I want to thank everybody for your patience, for having to deal with me all of this time. I hope that the information that we have shared, a little bit of our history, has been of any value to you. If not, you can always complain to Scott or anybody else, not to me. I would encourage you, if you have any questions, please, right now we can have this conversation. I would like to be an exchange, and we can continue later on talking about cigars. So with that, thank you very much for your patience and for your attention. Scott, Paul, I leave it back to you.
Juan, that was fantastic, as always. Thank you so much. Guys, get your questions in if you've got any. Just to repeat what Juan's saying, basically the cigars will be rolled in the next, what's tomorrow, Friday, within the next 2 or 3 working days. Once they've rolled, they'll be settled at the Joya factory, then frozen, and then they'll be shipped over with one of the very frequent shipments we have. We will then hold on to them in our humidor for about 90 days. So you're talking about February, March. I'll get them up to Paul, and then Paul's agreed to send them out to you all. So make sure you've given Paul the correct details. Otherwise, in March, you'll be wondering what's happened to your cigar.
We've got everybody's details. Like 98% of the orders would have come through as an online order, and we'll ship to the address that we sent the samplers out to. What Anthony will do also is that we'll email that link out to everybody if they don't have access to it at the moment, so they can get that form filled out. And then I guess we'll give everybody 24 or 48 hours to get that form filled out, and then we'll go back to confirm the blend that is chosen by everybody on the call.
Perfect. Yes, we can give them until tomorrow, 24 hours, so that we make sure that on Monday we can start rolling those cigars and that they have enough time to rest before they get your way.
We'll have the link sent out to everybody that's on the call.
Yeah. So while we've got you here, if we can just maybe ask you a little bit about the recent hurricanes and how it's affected the country, please. And importantly, is there anything we can do in the UK to help you?
Well, thank you very much, Scott. Yes, the last 3 weeks have been tough here in Nicaragua. Generally, we have, as we are a tropical country, we only have 2 seasons that we call them, but they are actually not the typical seasons as you would have them. We have dry season that we call summer that runs from November to May. And then we would have the rest of the year rainy season that we call winter, but it's actually rainy season that goes from May until October, late October generally. And when it rains a lot. It's very rainy. This year, hurricane season was a record setting, and we went over November to November. If we had 2 basically catastrophic hurricanes hitting northeastern Nicaragua, the Atlantic coast, North Atlantic coast of Nicaragua. The first was at the beginning of November, and the second one was last week. Both were Category 5 hurricanes that hit really, really hard the northern part of Nicaragua, but particularly the most vulnerable regions of the country, which is the Atlantic coast, where we have a lot of our Nicaraguans there are in a very severe state of poverty, and we still have a great divide between the level of development in the Pacific and Central and the Atlantic coast. Unfortunately, thousands and thousands of families have lost everything. They have lost their homes, they have lost their clothing, they have lost their production, their food. So right now, the country is dedicated in trying to support all of the Nicaraguans that have been affected, whose livelihoods have been affected by this. We have been blessed because not all of the country was affected, although we had a lot of rain, a lot of floodings, and a lot of mudslides. Unfortunately, we lost a little bit more than 30 lives of Nicaraguans have been lost due to the natural catastrophes. As we are a tropical country, big hurricanes hit us periodically. We've had historically about every 10 years, one major hurricane hits Nicaragua. 1989 was Hurricane Juan. 1998 was Hurricane Mitch that devastated our tobacco growing region in northern Nicaragua. In 2008, we had Hurricane Felix, and in 2020, we had these 2 hurricanes. So this is, unfortunately, is a reality our countries will have to deal with, and we need to work hard right now with supporting the livelihood of the people who have been directly affected with the basic survival needs from clothing, food, medicine, and right now the whole country and a lot of our friends in the international community have been supporting us in making donations to make sure that the proper support gets to these people. The second part, however, is also challenging, which comes with the reconstruction. We've had the severe damage to homes, to communities, roads, communication infrastructure, energy infrastructure has been severely damaged, and we need to reconstruct, rebuild. And lastly, we have the rebuilding of the capacity of human. We need to make sure that these communities are safe for the future, because unfortunately, the impact of climate change and the weather is something that we will have to live towards the future. So, Alicia, could you put in a link there for the ANF or World Vision funds? That we will put some links there if any of you want to learn more about the support initiatives for the people who have been affected by the hurricane. On the positive note, tobacco region, Esteli, Jalapa, although we got a lot of rain, we have not been affected. So there is not a major risk right now to cigar production or to the communities in tobacco growing region. So thank you for the question, Scott.
Yeah, well, we also in the room tonight have I've got you on my screen, Paul. Also in the room tonight, we have Ricardo Carioni, the Deputy Ambassador of Nicaragua, who's a great big fan of Joya De Nicaragua. So, Ricardo, do you have a question you'd like to approach Juan with, please?
Thank you very much, Scott, and it is a pleasure to be here, and it's always fantastic to see Juan and well, Mitchell, team at C.Gars, and the whole team at Toro Imports, and everybody here in the community coming together to enjoy these amazing cigars. And more than a question, I had a comment I wanted to just follow up and add a little bit to what Juan said in regards to what's happening in the country. But first, before I do that, I do have to say the experience of watching Michael work, you know, and movement by movement, and see how he creates this wonderful piece of art. It's interesting what Juan was saying into what makes us, or what makes Nicaragua, or many call us the king of cigars. And of all the reasons, the three main reasons, the primary reason, and I cannot agree more, is the people, is our people. And that same reason is what I personally feel the proudest of being Nicaragua. It's a wonderful country, wonderful geography, but there's one thing that I believe makes us unique and makes our history and our future so special in our eyes, at least, which is our people. And precisely as Juan said, right now it is our people who have suffered the most. This terrible catastrophe, I mean, I would dare say that whilst every sort of 10 years or so we get these horrible situations, the kind of hurricanes we got on this season and what's probably coming in the following ones, it's in many ways a result of climate change. I mean, we can see the heating of the oceans creating worse and worse hurricanes, worse storms. The number and the severity of what we've seen is unprecedented. And what we had this time, our Category 5 hurricanes back to back, 1 week after another, is simply incredible. But within this horrible situation, there's one figure that's stuck in my head when we're looking at what happened. And if you consider that about half of the people, about 3 million people, one way or another, were impacted. So this is a country size of England, 6 million, almost 7 million people, about 3 million of them get impacted by these horrible hurricanes. Of this, 160,000 people have to be relocated from their homes. To help those 160,000 people, 100,000 Nicaraguans went to help. And I think that speaks volumes of what people's belief and how they believe in each other, and solidarity comes to play, where out of 160,000, 100,000 goes to help. And I think that's what Juan is referring to as well in terms of what comes now, the recovery, the rebuilding. And in that sense, I need to express our sincere gratitude to Mitchell, to Scott, and everyone in the cigar industry. As far as I understand, part of the cigars that will be sold from Nicaragua, part of that fraction of that will be destined to funds that will help in the recovery of our communities. And that speaks volume of also the people, the brothers and sisters of the leaves, from us smokers to people who bring it in, to people who sell it, and to everyone else. And that's what we need. So yes, we're calling out to the world to help as much as we can. And if it is at least by enjoying these wonderful cigars, as I'm enjoying my numero uno today, that already helps a lot. But Scott, what you're doing, Mitchell, what you're doing is incredible. So thank you so much for that. And with that, Juan, thank you so much for what you do there. Alicia, Carlos, Michael, and everyone, what you're doing is helping the rest of the country. So on that note, it's a bit of a sad thing, but what you see tonight and that resilience of our people, that's something I think we have in common with Britain, that keep calm, carry on, and face forward. So that's incredible. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much indeed, Ricardo.
Gracias, Ricardo. I just want to add, Scott, that indeed the cigar industry, so every cigar that you smoke coming from Nicaragua in a way is also impacting not only through the purchase, but also our cigar community has vested for the past week, have dedicated from our workers to our families, to our clients from around the world, have come together in support from donations of food, medicine, beds, and cushions for the people to protect themselves, everything. We've channeled all of the support through the Nicaraguan Chamber of Tobacco that has been distributing all of the support through the Nicaraguan Red Cross and the other authorities that are supporting in the aid of the people who are right now affected by this strategy. So thank you very much, everybody, for the support that you have provided.
That's fantastic, Juan. And we're doing something similar over here. So I'll tell you all about it next week, okay? So listen, guys, I think we're going to call it a kind of wrap. So I think tonight's been a very, very, very special night. We thought we'd bring you something completely different. We can take this to another level in the future. We have the capability, don't we, Juan? Mm-hmm.
We certainly do, my friend.
So we've got the capability to take this on another level. But I appreciate everyone giving up their cold Thursday night. They could have been watching Leicester City draw 3-3 and qualify for the next round of the Europa Cup. So that's a good result. The last question I'm going to ask you, Juan, is yes. What is your favorite Joya cigar?
That's a tough question because it depends a lot on where I am, what I'm doing. It depends on the moment of the day. But right now, actually, Antaño CT is my regular favorite, although my all-time favorite is the Joya Black. My evening smoke, the complexity. I love Mexican tobacco, and this cigar showcases that blend beautifully, combined with Nicaraguan fillers. It's a fantastic smoke. So I hope that all of you enjoy them. But before we leave, I want to say a couple of things, Scott, if I may. First, I want to once again thank the C.Gars team, Mitchell for having us. It's quite an honor. AJ, Paul for hosting this. Of course, Scott, Jerry Mayer, you're not leaving, sir. Alan from Tor Imports. It's a great honor. One of the great blessings that this year has given us, besides getting closer to a lot of our family and friends, is the opportunity to do this type of things. This has been game changer for our industry, because before January 2020, in order to do this, we would probably have to fly all the way to you to come and to talk about cigars and enjoy a cigar together. Although it's never the same to do it virtually, but being together, being able to see your faces, read your messages, and eventually develop friendships with a lot of you once we connect, it's a fantastic experience. And we are very thankful. And as Ricardo said, the resiliency concept, it's something that this year has given us, to all of us, not only the cigar industry, but around the world. Stand up, look high, and move forward. And the opportunity to come view anytime from Nicaragua, it's quite a great blessing. With that, I want to invite you, if you have any questions, comments, or once you get your blends, if you want to follow up or connect with us, just do it at Joya Cigars in every social media. You can connect with us and ask any question. You can also connect with me. Alicia just put there on the chat the links, JI_Marts. You can follow us and we can connect there. You can also go to our webpage, and we have a virtual 3D tour of the factory. So if you go to www.joyacigars.com, you can actually do a virtual 3D tour of the factory. And that's also a great experience if you want to go a step forward and enjoy cigar making. So with that, it's been a pleasure. We hope that you enjoy the smokes. Please send us your feedback on Antaño CT and Joya Black, especially if you've never smoked a Nicaraguan cigar or if you've never smoked a Joya de Nicaragua before. We would greatly appreciate your feedback, and we invite you also in the future to test the rest of our cigars in our Obras Maestras, Antaños, and the Clásico series that we have in the UK. So thank you very much, everybody, and have a fantastic evening.
Thank you very much, Juan. Thank you.
Juan, can I just add my thanks? Mucho gusto. I'm very impressed with your English. It's way better than my awful Spanish. We've been seeing Nicaragua as a brand since I think the mid-1990s, maybe earlier, and the range has certainly changed a lot since then. My personal favorite is the Cuatro Cinco. I can smoke them back to back like candy sticks. I just absolutely love them. Your cigars feature on our mail order website and also in all of our retail stores around the UK, and they'll be having pride of place in our flagship store opening in St James's Street in London's West End in a few weeks' time. One of the few select ranges of New World cigars tour, obviously, that we will be featuring. We're very proud to be partners with Joya De Nicaragua, and I want to thank you for an amazing session this evening. You know, we've done some fabulous events online since the lockdown, but and every time I say, I don't think it can get any better. But, you know, really, this has been fantastic. So thank you very, very much from my heart. And we wish you all the best with everything you're doing. And we'll continue to support you in Nicaragua as much as we possibly can.
Thank you very much, Mitchell. It's quite an honor to hear that. And we are very thankful for all the support that you've been giving us, to you, your team, and everybody. It's a great privilege. And I look forward to the near future visiting the new flagship store. That sounds very exciting.
You'll be super welcome.
Thank you very much.
Gracias, mi hermano.
Well, I think it's time to go outside into the cold air now, guys, and
Right, thanks, Scott.
or come in from the cold.
Yeah, I'm heading in. I'm heading in. My toes are falling off.
Yeah.
It's about you, AJ.
Right,
There you go.
Thanks.
thank
you, everybody.
Thank you very much
Yeah,
indeed.
thanks, Juan. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Gracias. Buenas noches.
Cheers. Buenas noches.